All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Olivia Ansis, and I'm the Executive Artistic Director of the Gershman Philadelphia Jewish Film Festival. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for Shared Stories. Tonight's film, They Ain't Ready for Me, is the first film of 4 to explore the intersection of Black and Jewish experiences in America. I would like to thank our wonderful panelists for being here tonight. Thank you so much to the director of the film, Brad Rothschild. You can say hello.
Hi.
Over there, yeah. Thank you so much to the star of our film, activist extraordinaire, Tamar Manasseh.
Hi. Hey, guys.
And thank you so much to our moderator, Rabbi Tiferet Berenbaum. I am going to get off the screen so that we can begin our conversation, and I'll be back at the end to thank you all again. So thank you. I know you have some burning questions for our panel, and we're going to begin our talk now.
All right. Hi. So I am just going to introduce these two lovely people whom I know you already know a little bit about from the movie. So Tamar Manasseh is the founder / president of Mothers and Men Against Senseless Killings in Chicago, and her mission is to save the world. She's a mom, rabbinical student, and she's working tirelessly to build relationships and help others build relationships to keep people from killing other people's kids and family members. And the director-producer, Brad Rothschild, is an award-winning producer and writer with both a creative and a business background. Brad produced the award-winning documentary feature Kinderblock 66, Return to Buchenwald, directed the documentary film African Exodus about the plight of Israel's African refugees, and the documentary film Tree Man about the people who come to New York City to sell Christmas trees every holiday season. Tree Man won the Audience Award at the St. Louis International Film Festival, and he's currently directing a documentary film about Raoul Wallenberg. So, I'm going to start with a question for you, Tamar. I'll move this a little, sorry. I didn't realize I want to be off center for you guys. So, the theme of this evening's showing is Tikkun Olam, less talking, more doing, and you certainly embody that. And the message of this movie seems to be that the path to sane and reasonable gun violence and gun safety measures starts with community mobilization. And as you said in the movie, people really want things to change. But what do you think stops other people, even people in other neighborhoods, from doing what you're doing?
Fear. Fear. And sometimes complacency. You know, it's sad that we have to wait for these things to happen to us, that we have to be the one, then they came for us. When it's coming for us and we haven't spoken up for anybody else, it's going to get us. And that's just how it goes. And it's really sad that we have to wait to be on the receiving end to see why this is important, to see why we need to get active and get involved. So I think it's a matter of waking people up, and it's a matter of helping them understand our connectivity as people, as human beings that share this planet, as people who share this city, as people who inhabit the same neighborhood. It's really important for them to understand what happens to me affects you too. So it's kind of like, you know, that's the message that I really push, is it's important for you, because if you might be saving a kid, you might give a kid a hug, you might cook them dinner, you might have a conversation with them. And that might be the kid that could have potentially in 2 years robbed you and killed you. But because you had this interaction with them and it cost you nothing to do it, you just saved your own life and you didn't even know it.
Yeah. So
at all, I'm sorry, but just at different points, we're kind of like, you know, all like Lamed Vavniks at some point or another. Yeah. We all have to be that. We all have to realize that any moment we can be that in this world. And we have to step up and we have to do that job when we're called to do it.
That's great. I hear that. So, Brad, how did you learn about Tamar, and what compelled you from what you learned to amplify her story?
So I read an article in the Jewish Telegraphic Agency in October of 2016 about this African-American rabbinical student who leads an army of moms taking on gun violence on the south side of Chicago. That was the headline, and I just got pulled in based on that and read this article about this amazing woman in Chicago who is using her Judaism to spur on her activism. And the more I read, the more compelling of a story it was, and the more I thought to myself, wow, I need to make a movie about this incredible woman. So I reached out to her on social media and via her organization's website, and I introduced myself and I said, I'd really like to make a film about you. It took a while to get a response, and I tried a few different ways before hearing back. And basically Tamar said, I think my life is about as interesting as watching the paint dry, so I don't know why anybody would want to watch a film about me. And I said, with all due respect, I disagree. And that was basically the beginning of a dialogue between the two of us that took a while, took a long time before she would get comfortable with the idea. And then finally we met in Staten Island. She came to Staten Island. She texted me and she said, I'm in Staten Island if you want to meet me. And I said, okay, I'm coming. And we talked for a while. And at the end of the conversation, she said, yeah, if you want to make a film, I guess, we can do it this summer. And that was it. That was all I needed. And, I really, from that first article, I could feel her personality, and I could sense that she was somebody who was worthy of having her story amplified. And every day since then, I just thank my lucky stars that she allowed me to do it.
That was nice.
Tamar, yes. If you
wait, I'm picking up a feedback or yeah.
I don't know where that's coming from. I'm curious if you experienced anti-Semitism on the block, or if you had to prove yourself in any way because as a Jew.
Oh, I don't prove myself to anybody anymore with anything I do. I don't need to prove to other Black people that I am Black, and I don't need to prove to other Jews that I'm a Jew. Either you accept it or you don't. Either way, it has nothing to do with nothing to do with me. That's all on you. If you can't accept me being a Jew, that's not my problem. If you can't accept me being Black, that's not my problem either. Just as I wouldn't explain my Blackness to anybody, I'm not explaining my Jewishness either. I'm not going to explain why I'm a woman either. Ask God. You got questions? Ask God. Take it up with God. God is the one that made me. And God does not make mistakes, not even when he makes a Black woman a Jew. So, yeah, that's kind of how I see that. So, I mean, on the block, I had never experienced anti-Semitism before I got to the block. And it came from other Black people. It didn't come from other Jews. It came from other Black people, because it was this idea that, oh, what she's doing is working so well because the Jews are supporting her. And it was just, it's just so crazy, because people look for a reason to, if what they've done or what they're doing is not necessarily working, but if you're doing something else that seems to be making a dent, it has to be some nefarious reason that this is happening. And since I'm a Jew now, oh, it's because of the Jews. Hold up, buddy. You don't get ever get to discriminate against me because I'm a Jew. I'm Black. Okay. Sorry. I'm only going to do racist. You can only be racist. I can deal with racism, but anti-Semitism, I will not tolerate. It's that simple for me.
I'm curious for you, Brad, as a Jew experiencing whiteness who, was on the block and in all of these places, did you experience any anti-whiteness or anything during the filming?
Not even close.
That's great.
I felt welcome from the minute that I started filming on the block, and that's probably because people knew that I was with Tamar. So I never heard anything like, oh, check out that white dude, or, you know, the only funny thing is that every once in a while people would come up to me and ask me questions about mask, like I was in charge or something. And I'm like, I'm just making a film here. If you want to talk to somebody, talk to that woman over there. And, you know, there's kind of like this sense like, oh, he's the white guy, he must be in charge, which is like, I'm not in charge of anything except this shoot. And sometimes I wasn't even sure I was in charge of that. So, but interestingly enough, the only time I ever felt uncomfortable wasn't even on the block. It was when we went to, we were filming, Tamar went to speak in a synagogue on the, in the
Tisha
north.
B'Av. Was it Tisha B'Av, I think?
Right, it was Tisha B'Av in the northern suburbs. I'm not going to say which town it was, but my cameraman, Dan Coleman, I think his mom might be watching tonight. So if she is, my wonderful cameraman, Dan Coleman, and I, we got there a little early, and we were setting up to do some establishing shots of the synagogue. This is after we had walked inside, chatted with the rabbi, made sure everything was okay. And we're just out there with the camera, the two of us, and this woman comes up to us, an Orthodox woman, and she starts asking like what we're doing. She said, well, what are you doing out here? I said, we're filming a documentary. She's like, what's it about? I'm like, oh, it's about this rabbi from the South Side, rabbinical student from the South Side who's a gun violence activist, and she's speaking here tonight. She's like, does the rabbi know that you're out here? I was like, yeah, the rabbi knows we're out here. Like, it's all okay. And that was really the only weirdness that ever happened. But nothing like that went on the block. Like once we showed up there more than twice, like people were just like, oh yeah, here are those guys who are filming Tamar. And that was kind of it.
Nice. All right, I've asked a lot of my questions. I'm so excited. So I'm going to turn it over to some of the questions from our Q&A. So people want to know, Tamar, how has your work evolved over the last few months of COVID and the national awareness around Black Lives Matter?
Well, it's the national awareness of Black Lives Matter, but I was always aware of it. So it really hasn't impacted my work so much. COVID has, though. We in the movie, you see the vacant lot that we're in. It's no longer a vacant lot. We actually built a school there out of shipping containers. And so what the school in the shipping containers was going to be, it was going to actually be a trade school for young adults. And we were going to help, with life skills and, help people get GEDs and, kind of put them in the right direction. But then COVID happened. And at first I was really hesitant about saying, okay, now, it's all of these elementary school kids that have nowhere to go during the day, and their parents are at work because these are essential workers in this neighborhood. And so we have somewhere for them to go. It's just, it wasn't intended for them. And my cousin said, you built a school. Noah built an ark and it started to rain. You built a school and then COVID happened. Open them doors and let them kids in. And I never even thought about it before then. So we had to kind of shift our focus to accommodate younger kids, because the kids in the neighborhood, they still needed to have somewhere to do their e-learning, to have somewhere to eat lunch, to just be supervised while their parents were driving Uber or doing Instacart or working, stocking the shelves at the supermarkets. They still had to be somewhere, and they still needed some sort of adult supervision. So they came to the school. And so even though we weren't ready at that time to accommodate kids, we had to, because it started raining and Noah built the ark and we had to do it. So since then, it has really just, it's magnified for me how much our kids are struggling in public education, how much money needs to go into that, how much, when we're talking about defunding the police, how much we need to redirect those dollars back into education, because you really get to see what kids aren't getting when you're trying to teach them something. When it's lots of them and you're trying to gauge where they are and get them to where they need to be, you understand what they aren't getting in school. So I really think I'm kind of thankful that happened, because I would have hated to see these kids going on and going on and going through the motions and going down the road, and they're behind the whole time. So it has been rough with social distancing and, you know, all of the new norms, but we've been working on it. That's what we've been doing. So it kind of pushed us to be ready. We might not have been ready, but we got ready real fast. So that's what it's done. It's I don't think we've worked this hard since we started, but now we understand what we do. It has a greater purpose than what we ever thought it was. It's so much more than just stopping violence now. Now it's making sure kids have the necessary tools to do e-learning. It's making sure they have devices. It's making sure that they have internet capabilities, internet access. It's making sure that they still get a hot meal. It's making sure young people get GEDs and young people still have a dream somewhere in them, and they still see that they can live real normal lives and get their piece of the American dream. So it's a lot bigger than just stopping violence to us now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And all of this, of course, takes money. And so one of the questions from the audience is, you know, where does the funding come from? Where does the money come from?
We are the Bernie Sanders of community organizations. Every donation is about $28, and some are 18, some are 36. You know how Jews do. You know how we are. So yeah, it's some that are like that. But for the most part, that's where our donations come from. It's just people believe in what we do, so they donate. And that adds up after a while. And I mean, we, especially when you grow up like I did, we weren't rich growing up. You learn how to stretch a dollar. You know how to make that work. You know how to squeeze every penny out of it. So that's pretty much where it comes from. No really large foundations or anything like that. It's just people power.
Yeah. And, you know, you grew up on the South Side, and I think a lot of this movie took place, you know, in the beginning of the summer and building the summer experience of Mask. And I'm curious what your experience was like as a child. Like, what were your summers like for you as a child?
Well, I went to Jewish day school. And so in the off season, I would go and visit my friends who lived in neighborhoods outside, far, far, far away from the one that I lived in. They lived in the other Chicago, the nicer Chicago, on the other side of the track, Chicago. And so I would go visit, but, you know, I would come home and I would tell my friends, like around my block, like my friend lives in the suburbs and they have a pool in the backyard and blah, blah, blah. They have a dog, because back then Black people didn't have little dogs because they don't go to work and it's just an extra mouth to feed. What does this dog do? You don't get a pet that doesn't work. So if it's not a security dog, we aren't just getting a dog just to have a dog. So it was kind of like I would go like this far, far away land called Evanston. Like it was like that. And I would tell my friends in the suburbs about how we lived on the block. And so it's like I would love it when I could like kind of bring both of them together. Either they would come to my house sometimes, or I would bring other friends to their homes. But in the summer, it was just like normal. It was like every other normal Black kid who grows up in the hood. Their summer, you know, there were lightning bugs, and it was watermelon being eaten on the back porch because you can't eat it in the house because it's too sticky. It was, you know, you're outside playing football until the lights come on. You're playing tag, you're playing it. But at a certain age, you did start having friends who got killed in the summer. And when you got to be a teenager, your summers kind of changed a little bit. And you did have to be more careful because you could venture off the block. You could go further than your front porch, than the stoop. And things happen outside of the gate, off the block, down the street, around the corner, in the next neighborhood over. Things happen. So you had to learn to be more careful and more guarded and watch your back and watch the back of your cousins and your friends and the people that you were out with, because you knew people. By the time I was 13, I had friends who were already being murdered. And I also had friends who were going to jail for those murders. So it was a very real world for me by the time I was in 7th, 8th grade.
Wow. So we have some questions about Beth Shalom, about your synagogue. This one is mine. I would love to hear one of the songs that Rabbi Fournier mentioned that you had composed a lot of songs, and I would love to hear if you would like to sing one of those tunes.
I can't sing any of those tonight. But one day I will get drunk and record it for you, and I will send it to your DM.
Oh,
I'll do
good.
that for
Now
you.
we're Facebook friends. That's
Yes,
awesome.
yes.
Okay.
Drunk temple song karaoke. Yes, that's what we'll call it.
That's the best.
Yes.
So someone is asking, what is your present relationship with the Beth Shalom, and are there any updates beyond the film?
About what? Any updates beyond the film?
About your progress in rabbinical school, about their acceptance of women.
I still have a very close relationship with Beth Shalom. I mean, what I do, my schedule does not permit me to get to service on Shabbat like everybody else. On Shabbat, I'm on a corner, and I'm still doing God's work on that corner. I'm still actually in it with God's people. I'm in the tent that's open on all four sides. I'm doing the most Jewish thing I can think to do on a Shabbat. So I still have a very close relationship. I mean, I grew up there. My history is there. I'm tied to it forever, and it's forever part of who I am. But I don't get there often. And I think that just my relationship with Beth Shalom and the way that it works, I think a lot of Jews are going to be going in that direction. I think we're moving out of synagogue Judaism and more into an activist kind of Judaism, more kind of in the street. And you take what you learn and you apply it to the world that you live in, because it's really easy to be good to other Jews and to be kind to other Jews and take care of other Jews and be there and look out for other Jews. We know how to do that. But what does it look like when we take those Jewish principles and apply them to the world outside of our synagogues? It's much more fulfilling, at least for me it is. So I see a lot more of us showing up for those events that we have on the block, when we do, like, the Sukkah soiree, or when we do the Passover on the block, when we do stuff like that. Like, people really show up for those things. There's nothing more biblical than a tent, a Seder in a tent on a corner. Like, it's really very Old Testament. It's awesome. You should try it one day. But those kind of things, those kind of events excite younger Jews. It excites people who wouldn't normally go to temple. It excites those kids who have been bar and bat mitzvah, who don't necessarily want to go to service anymore with their parents because it's not so cool. It is pretty cool coming to the block and hanging out on the block and doing a Yiskor service there or something. It's awesome. So it looks like my ordination may be taking place in October. Fingers crossed. Cross your fingers, everybody out there. So that's what it looks like. I mean, I finished up my studies almost a decade ago. So I've just not been ordained because of the gender thing. That's it.
Wow.
And everybody's invited to the party, because it's going to be a really big party. My mother is going to invite the doctor that delivered me when I get my smear. So it's going to be epic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a great question about your relationship with the police. Have you personally ever reached out to the local police station and invited them to come and interact with the neighbors? Or did the police ever initiate some positive interaction with the children and the adults that came to the block? No. That it was established very early on that I was one of them, meaning the people on the block, and not one of the police. It was very clear. Those roles were established very early on. If I wasn't willing to be an informant, or I wasn't their eyes and ears on the street, then I was their enemy, and it never should have been that way. And since then, it hasn't been like that. And I mean, we have to understand, and I think America's just starting to get it, that people like me, there are people in this country that the police make them feel safe. And that's what they're supposed to do. And they feel safe. They don't think they're that bad because the police represent safety to them. But it's people like me and people on my block who the police have to suppress and have to keep quarantined and have to keep sectioned off and cordoned off from people like you, the ones that they make feel safe. They protect you from us. And it's terrible. It's a terrible feeling like we are the people who the police have to protect the rest of the world from. It's really hard. It's hard being those people. And it creates a lot of tension. And that's what creates a lot of the hostility that we see that boils over into these really deadly interactions.
But no, we don't. The police, they don't really come around. And I mean, they're not there. Like one police captain told me, we're not here to make hot dogs and hug people. Okay, so what are you here to do? Yeah, nope. Wish we had a better relationship. We just don't.
Yeah, can I say something about that?
Yeah.
So if you remember in the beginning of the film, there is a police officer on the block the first day. And he came out there. He was not part of the precinct that where 75th and Seward is. And he came out there, and he was out there for a long time. And he was talking with a lot of people, and he was having fun. And I talked to him, and, you know, this is the first shooting day. And when it was over, I talked to Tamar, and I was naive, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. This cop was out here, and he was interacting with people. And he gave me his card, and he said he would talk to me. And she looked at me, Tamar looked at me and said, you'll never see him again. And you know what? We never saw him again.
Wow.
Nope. Yeah, it's pretty disheartening. You just got to keep working at it.
Yeah.
Got to keep working at it.
Speaking of this, the working, someone asked a question, like, it's really hard to start a project. And this is a massive project. And, you know, you talked right in the beginning about how people are afraid and all the things that keep people from starting. So how did you start? Like, what gave you the energy? What pushed you to pick up a chair and to go out?
This is what I was called to do. This is what I was called to do. You know, I think people sometimes go their whole lives wondering, what was I put here? Why was I created? What was I created to do? And I think at some point or another in our lives, it's revealed to us. Now, whether or not you want to do it, that's up to you. But it's not like you don't know what you were put here to do. It's just, do you have the nerve to do it? And the thing for me was being Jewish and being Black. It's almost like, well, I know you use both sides of your brain at the same time, but it's like both firing at like 100% all the time. Because being Jewish, you're an overcomer. You learn that. You learn about all the times that the Jewish people have overcome so many obstacles. And then being Black and in America, it presents you with a whole lot of problems. Not a lot of solutions, but a lot of problems. So it's very easy for you to identify what the problems are. The solutions, not so much. It's a little bit more cloudy. But being Jewish teaches you there's always a solution. All you have to do is find it. And when you find a solution, you can do it. There's nothing to stop you from doing it. And so the thing for me was, my kids are Black. They're Jewish, but they're also Black. It's not like a gunman is going to say, oh, I'm not going to shoot him because he's Jewish and he's wearing a kippah. Or no, I'm going to shoot him and his funny little hat too. That's how that's going to go. So my kids, just because they were Jewish, aren't somehow exempt from, living the life that other Black kids in our neighborhood do. They're still affected by the same things. So it was a matter of figuring out how to save my kids. And so figuring out how I was going to do that, I realized I have to save everybody else's kids too, because my kids are not in a vacuum. They have friends, and their friends have friends, and their friends' friends have friends. So the thing was, for me to understand what was going on, for me to understand it, I had to be there in it. I couldn't understand it in my living room. I couldn't understand it from my kitchen. I couldn't understand it from my office. I had to understand it there, where it was happening at, where my kids would learn it, where my kids would be affected by it. So the thing was, for me, I think it might have just been fear. I need to keep my kids alive because I'm not strong enough to be the mom on the first row burying a kid. I'm not ready to do that, and I won't do it. So whatever I have to do, if I have to be out there in it with them, that's what I'm going to do. But I'm going to save my kids. And it's just, when I got out there, it wasn't just about my 2 kids anymore. It was about 20, and then 30, and then 50, and then the whole neighborhood, and now it's all of them. So it was, what will you do as a mother to save your kids? How far will you go? And my answer is, I'll sit on the corner all summer, every day, all day. if it'll save my kids, if it'll save these kids, it's no limit what I will do. As my grandmother used to say, I will walk across hell on a spider web to save my kids. And that is really how I feel about this.
So, obviously you have to sleep at some point.
Not really. You would think, right? But nope, not really.
Yeah,
not really.
She doesn't sleep and she doesn't eat.
Not really. Not really.
Giving all the hot dogs away to everybody else. But how does your impact on the block carry over? Like, what is the block like at night? What is it like during the school year? What's it like during the winter when you can't sit out there?
Nobody gets killed. People don't really get killed because the thing is, it doesn't work. It's not what I want for them. It's me believing so deeply in them and what they could be, and me telling them you can have a better life, and me showing them that they can have a better life. But now they want it for themselves. So it's not me doing it. I don't live there. They do. So they've corrected themselves. They've started saying, we want something different. We want to live differently. So we're going to behave differently because we want a different outcome. And so that's why that's why I'm always about jobs. And, our elected officials finding a way. Our kids have made it this far. You wanted them to stop shooting. You wanted them to actually, look to the future, and you wanted them to be more considerate of other people's lives. And they can do that now because other people are more considerate of theirs. It's kind of like now they need jobs. We brought them this far. Now you have to help. Now it should be a partnership. And it drives me crazy. Like, it really hurts me when I see a kid who comes to me and says, hey, I need a job, or can you help me get into this training program? And before I can do that, they're dead or in jail. It breaks your heart because they saw something better. They saw the light at the end of the tunnel, but they didn't make it there. So it's kind of like, these are thinking, rational, sane people, just like me, just like you. They want good things out of life too. But if people constantly tell them that they don't deserve it and they aren't capable of having that, they don't look for it. But the thing is, that's not the message that I bring. So when I'm not there, or in the summer, or any of that, people are working toward the better life that they believe that they can now have.
That's amazing. I hear in that story, the Asuli Mikdash v'shachanti betocham. But you have built a mikdash. You've built sacred space. You've helped them create their own sacred space so that this peace and this love and this community and all those things that make up Hashem can dwell in that community amongst the people.
In that space.
Yeah.
In that space. Do you know how moving it is to do a Yizkor service on Rosh Hashanah, on Yom Kippur, and to have young people say the names of all of the people that they've lost in that year, or all of the people that they want to pray for? And this is a place where kids are constantly losing people. It's a place where people have taken lives, have lost their lives. It's a very emotional thing. It means something a lot different for people in my neighborhood than it means for people normally in synagogues. It's a whole different thing. This whole idea of redemption and teshuvah and being able to be forgiven. And this is like every year you get to do this. Like, you're never outside of God's grace. You're never outside of God's mercy. You're never in a place where God forgets that he made you. And that right there can turn a whole life around. Just the idea of knowing that you're still in the consciousness of the Creator, of the Most High. You can't do anything to get out of it. There's still hope for you. And if God still has hope for you, you have to still have hope for yourself. So you see some stuff out there.
Well, sort of connected to that, the Torah says we're not supposed to go back to Mitzrayim, but you went back. You went to your ancestors' Mitzrayim, and you received so much. So I'm curious, why do you think we're warned against going back, and how do you think the American experience would change if more people went to explore their history in the South?
It makes you a stronger person. It makes you a real warrior to know where you come from. The thing is, when the riots were happening and everything was going down, I told somebody, I said, it's a difference between being 50 years angry and being 400 years angry. It's a difference in being 75 years angry and 250 years angry. So when you go back and you understand that there's a parallel, that your family lived at the same time American history was happening, at the same time Black history was happening, your family was a part of that. So where was your family when all of these momentous occasions were occurring in American history? Where was your family? Where was your family? I mean, what at the Constitutional Convention, was it your uncle who was the bellboy, the body servant to George Washington, or somebody else? Black people were there in every room. In every room where it happened, there was a Black man or a Black woman. Was that your people? Was that your family? We watched American history happen. We helped it happen. We made it happen. We made it possible for the people we would read about in history books, who would be taught in history classes in America. We made it possible for them to do the things that they did to create this country. And so my stories, the stories of the people that were in those rooms that nobody talks about, the servants that were there, those are important stories because those are our stories. It's important for us to go back and get those stories, because you can't talk about reparations, or you can't talk about slavery and just say slavery was bad. What was it constituted of? What was it made up of? Slavery was made up of a million different stories in all of our families. And it makes you a completely different person to understand those stories. It's my mother has locks, and it was the most difficult thing in the world for her hair to lock because she had too much Euro in her afro. However, we have no white relatives. So how does she have hair like this, but we have no white relatives? Oh, I know how. I know the stories. How are my kids 3 shades lighter than me? We have no white relatives. But yet and still, the proof is here. It happened. And so the thing is, it doesn't just make you angry. It doesn't just help you understand what's going on now. And you don't feel like you're just advocating for yourself now and for Black people in the now. You're advocating for 8 or 9 generations of Black people because you owe that to them. So it connects you. That sense of you, it's not just your parents. You didn't just come from your parents. You came from a lot of people who overcame a lot to get you here. And you owe something to them because they survived. We can't survive until Thursday without alcohol or some sort of drugs these days. These people survived slavery without the anesthesia, sober. They survived that. I owe them something. So I think that's what it does. It in order to really understand where we're going as a people, you got to go back. You got to go back to go forward. You got to.
So we have time for about 2 more questions. Someone wrote in the comments here that you make the distinction between anti-Semitism and racism. You say that you can accept racism being Black, but not anti-Semitism. Why do you make that distinction?
Oh, because Black people don't get to be anti-Semitic against another Black person. We came from the same fields. Our grandparents were the same sharecroppers. We come out the same struggle. You absolutely don't get to mistreat me or discriminate against me because I believe in a different God than you, because I believe in the God of gods, because that's all it is. You don't get to do that. You don't get to say, we're going to exclude you because of your spirituality when we're all stuck in the hood and we're all struggling and we're all worried about our kids getting killed. You don't get to do that. I just won't give you the right to do that. You just don't get to, because the same racism that's keeping you down, the same structural and institutionalized racism that's holding you back is holding me back. So no, I'm sorry. You don't get to be anti-Semitic toward me. You just don't. Black people just don't get to do that with me. Now, I mean, I don't know about anybody else. It's never come from anybody else, but I don't think I would tolerate it from them either.
So you intimated in the movie at least with the gentleman you were talking to, that maybe politics is in your future. How do you feel about that? Do you think politics is really in your future? Do you have time for that?
One day. One day. It will happen one day because I need to make my obituary really interesting.
Yeah, right.
And when I'm 75 and I'm writing my memoir and I have all of these stories to tell, I need to have a story. Like, remember that one time when I was the president or when I was the mayor, or remember when I ran for office? Like, I need that. I need that in the book. I need to definitely round the story out with that. So yes, I'm going to need filler for my life story. So maybe, probably.
Fair enough. And I have one last question for Brad. Brad, tell us what's the story that you're trying to tell now, and or what's the next story that's coming down the pike for you as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. Unfortunately, because of what's going on with the pandemic, a lot of things that had been planned are on the back burner. So in terms of next projects, I have a couple of things in my mind, but for now, I think the most important thing for me is to help amplify Tamar's stories and to continue doing that in different ways. And Tamar and I have talked and continue to talk about new projects and other ideas for projects, and I think that's sort of the direction that I'm going to go in for a little while.
I'm going to give you a hint. They're all awesome. All of the projects are awesome. All of the next stories are awesome. So one day we're going to be back here doing this whole conversation thing again. Hopefully next time in person though. But they're all awesome. Spoiler alert. Yes.
And Tamar, if people want to help and support Mask, how can people get involved?
www.ontheblock.org. www.ontheblock.org, or you can find us on Facebook. The kids tell us that we're on the Twitter and the Instagram, but I'm a little older, so I don't really get involved with that. But I know you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on the other platforms too, but I just don't know how to tell you how to get there. But ontheblock.org and on Facebook, Mothers Against Senseless Killings, you'll find us. Boom. There you go.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you both so much. And I'm going to turn it back over to Olivia.
And actually, I don't know how to get back on here.
Uh-oh.
I couldn't figure out how to get in. You can't figure out how to get back on. It's great.
Oh, I figured it out.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you all so much. It was such an amazing discussion. I really appreciate your honesty, being so frank with our audience, and just giving your heart to this film, allowing this director into your life, into your neighborhood. Well, not your neighborhood, but
he's like one of my best friends now, though. Like we are the 2020 King and Heschel and King. On some days he's King and I'm Heschel. On others we switch it up. That's how it goes. That's what we do now.
Well, that's perfect. When you can become friends with your creative collaborators, then it's like you're getting, two amazing things for the price of one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you all very much. I hope that you join us next week. This is for our audience. All of you are wonderful. I hope that you commit to the whole series, but especially if you can join us next week, Monday night, the same time, for Shared Legacies, the African American and Jewish Civil Rights Alliance. It is an enlightening and informative film. I know that you're going to appreciate all that you're going to learn from it. And again, we're going to have a great discussion. So please join us, get your tickets, and also please give to Mask. It's an incredible, incredible organization, as you can see, an almost one-woman show with the help of volunteers. So please open your hearts and your wallets and give to Mask. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great evening. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.